but let's go over these notes really quick. Just show you some points in here. So object-oriented is, I'm sure you already know about that. If you have taken Java classes, you should know about object-oriented programming. What it is a special, or it's a different paradigm in programming. Okay, so the object-oriented programming is the opposite of the procedural language. So in procedural programming language, you would start everything from top to bottom, right, in that sequential order. But in object-oriented, you create objects and you can start pretty much anywhere in your code. So it's quite different, and it's very powerful. Object-oriented is not, it's not a what do you call this? It's, I mean, it doesn't fit all programs. Okay, you only use that especially in a very large application. I mean, small project size, you don't want to use it because it's just not that efficient. So it's ideal for a very large project, but nonetheless, it's very flexible and also very powerful. So when we talk about object-oriented programming, we hear the term, or the acronym OOP or OOP. Okay, you always think about classes and these other terms: encapsulation, right, polymorphism, and a few others. Okay, so these are just some really important concepts in object-oriented programming methodology. Encapsulation means you actually hide data. That's what it means. Data hiding, or information hiding. You're hiding from what? From who, right? So there are actually two layers to this. One is you are hiding data from other objects. So if you create an object A, so object B and A, they can share the same class, right? They have the same blueprint, but each of those objects are completely separate. So therefore, they have this thing called a black box. Okay, so inside itself, you have all this internal data that other objects cannot know and they can't access. Okay, that's in the object world. But also encapsulation means, like in the physical world, where you're a programmer can actually write your code, and you can actually encrypt your code in some ways, like in Java, for example, so that other people cannot steal your code. Okay, so you basically, all the code are internal inside a class that you design, or a classes or module that you could only share what can be accessed to other users. So basically, you provide some type of interface for them to use. So you can say, here's a class called account, and in this account class, you have the following properties and the following functions you can use, and you need to pass this type of data to it to get what you want, right? So they don't see the internal code. You don't see those, and you block those, and you make those private only to yourself, so other people cannot steal it, right? So also very popular for, like in PHP, you can use a Zen engine to zip or to kind of encrypt all your data, right? People can use it. They can run locally from the machine, but they cannot decipher what's in the code. Okay? So whenever you're ready, you can just do you need me to do anything for you, or?
No, you're doing lecture now, or do you have a lab later? Or
no, we're going to have a lecture, then we'll have to take a break about 6:30 or so, and then we'll do some in-class assignments.
Okay. Can I get in this room over here?
Is it locked?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can open it up for you. Just do it. Okay. Okay, so in the broad sense, that's encapsulation. Just remember the encapsulation gives you this black box. Okay, they don't know what's inside. All they know is just you feed something, you get something back. Okay, so kind of like this example here in the book, you have this object here, right? So all these buttons are just interfaces. I know that I can punch in a 7, I get a 7. I punch in a plus, I get a plus symbol, plus 9, and then plus equal sign, I get a result, right? You don't know the internal process, what's going on, what does it do? So you don't really know. So it's in a black box. Okay.
Beyond securing your code, it really extends the services model.
Yes.
So you're coming in, you don't care about the implementation, but you're just here to get to be serviced by A, B, and C, and you don't care how it's done.
Exactly. That's exactly the black box, yes. Right, I don't care what you do in there, I don't care how long it takes, it's just that I give you what you required, and I expect something back. So, yes. And so in JavaScript, we have used the document object a lot of times already, right? So that is a black box, because this is probably one of the few in JavaScript that you cannot have access to the actual internal process inside this document object, because it's hidden. You can't access it. So what you do is that, okay, they have this function called get element by ID, get element by class name, and all the other properties or functions you can use. And like Richard was just saying, if you pass in this container ID, I'll get you the tag, right? That's all you know, and that's all you need to know, because how it does it inside, how does it search the page, how does it get it, the process will get that data from the web page, they don't tell you, so you don't know that, right? So in a way, it's a black box. So you feed in the requirements, and then the black box returns you the result that you want. Okay, so it's a really good example here. So classes. Okay, so just let you know right ahead that JavaScript does not allow you to create standard classes like you can with Java or other languages. Even though they use the word classes in there, okay, you don't really get a true class. What you get is really a prototype. Okay, so it's a prototype of the actual class, which is the object class itself. But you can have objects that act in a similar way to a true object in the true object-oriented class, a language class. So when you create something out of a class, remember that class is what? What is a class? For those of you who are taking Java already, or any other languages, what's a class? So just to, I guess, a quick review, class is a template, right?
Blueprint.
A blueprint, right? So a blueprint to create objects out of that blueprint. Okay, think of a class, think of a blueprint to build a house, construct a car, I don't know, design a mouse, whatever it is. Right? Whatever the blueprint is, that's all it is. It is not an object. It's just a blueprint, just in code that will allow you to create that object. Now, when you create an object out of that, we call this an instance of the object of the class. We use the keyword instantiate. Okay, so instantiate means to create an object out of this class. So you can create a lot of objects out of this class, and then whatever components or properties or behavior that object, that class contain, all the objects created out of the class will only inherit all of those features. Okay, and then each of those can be uniquely created and they have their own data. You can modify their properties and their behavior, but all the features will be the same. Okay, so you need an object, you need a class to instantiate any object. It's true also in JavaScript. So that's an object. Here is I got this from the other book, if you remember. Okay, so a JavaScript object is like a dog, right? Think of a dog in the real world. It's an object of anything here. Objects doesn't have to be real world or things. It could be anything. It could be that's digital. It could be a concept. Like, for example, a bank account is not something you can touch, you can see. It's just a thing in the digital world. but it is a thing. It is an entity of something. If you think about databases, it's a table of data, right? It's the same thing. So this dog is an object. It has a lot of features, properties. It has colors, has fur, has eyes and mouth and teeth and so on. These are your properties. And then the behavior will be, it can run, it can bark, it can sleep, and so on. So all these are other behavior with the object. Okay, so mainly objects have properties and methods or functions. So JavaScript has a lot of built-in functions. Objects already, you can just use them right away. These are a list of them. As you can see, they put classes here, though they're not really like true class, but they are a class under the JavaScript. And so some of these classes, you can use them right away without instantiating. We'll see a few of them here. So like math, for example, the math class is a special class you can use right away. You don't have to say, var m is equal to new math, right? You don't need to do that. When you create a new object, you always use the word new something, just like a regular class. That's one way. Another way is like an array class, for example. You could just say, var pet equals new array, give you a new array object. Or you can say var pet equals in the code bricks, the square brackets, also instantiating object of array. So there are two ways to do that. So math class here, what I mean by you can use it right away without instantiating. That means this is the math class. You can say math.py will give you the pi. Okay, these are some built-in constants and the functions and properties of the class, math class. So I don't have to say, pi is equal to new math, and then access it from there. You don't have to. You just say, give me the pi of this, give me the cosine of 45, and it will give you that right away by using the class name, a dot property or function. Okay. The array class. Now this one you have to instantiate. Okay, you have to instantiate in order to use all its properties and features. So for example, you can do it in two ways. One is, you declare a variable equal to the new and then the array name, right? So just like a regular Java class. And then once you instantiate that, then you have access to all its internal properties, like the array to sort, to swap, search, all those stuff are available. Okay, and so on. So for example, to uppercase is one of those functions you can use to capitalize all the characters for this student name, for example. If you don't do this, if you don't have the new array, and if you just say state is equal to something array dot up or something, okay, it does not work because it doesn't have, you don't have a new thing, right? So this object doesn't is not exist, that yet doesn't extensiate, so it doesn't exist, unlike in math. So math, I can just say math dot something, I'll get that value right away. Array does not give you that until you instantiate it this way, or you can set students equal to that square brackets, and then you can use it after that. Okay, so another one is the date class. This also you have to instantiate if you want to use these, like get the date, year, the month, the day, the hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, you need to instantiate a new date. So you see that if you want to say date will be like new date, and then you can say after that will be like date equal to get date or something, right? And then you can access each properties or functions, get day, get month, get full year, and so on. You can't just say new month is equal to date, get month. Okay, so you need to instantiate an object to out of the date class. Some you can use, some are available, like a few of them, like will be like date.now. That's available. You don't have to instantiate that, but it's a given. But most of the internal functions and properties you have to instantiate to use it. Okay, number class, I'm not going to talk about that. You can read about it. I want to go over to the custom objects. This is where you have a lot of fun because you can create your own objects. Okay, and you can also use other people's objects as well. So this diagram to show you that the orange ones are your own, and then the blue ones are created by somebody else. It could be the built-in objects, or you can borrow a script from somebody and then use those objects in your code as well. So you can combine all of those together in your program. Okay, and then because JavaScript doesn't allow you to encapsulate your data, so that means that anybody can steal your code, just like that. And I don't know, it can be helped, I guess. But so you can link to any external JavaScript from anywhere in the world, and you can just download the file. You can see all the code there. All the source code is all there. Okay, so it's not actually secured, but I don't know. Can't help it. So when you create a new object, your own object, you can do it in this way. So you have to use the word new and then the object class or the object constructor. From there on, that variable or that teacher is now the object. And then once that's been instantiated, you can attach any property you want to that object without predefine that object at the property. Okay. Once you create a property like this, then from here on, this property exists throughout the entire program until you delete it. Okay. So notice that if you just do banker.name and assign that to somebody or something, okay, that's not allowed because it is not know that's an object, right? So it doesn't work. Okay. You need to instantiate it first before you can use it. And so here's the syntax for that. I'm just go down here. Two ways you do it, kind of similar to the array. Okay. One way is just object name is equal to a curly brace, a pair of curly braces. The inside here can be any of this, like a property value pair. Okay, you have a property name and then followed by colon and then value. And then if you want another property, you separate each of those with a comma. Okay, not a semicolon, a comma. If you use a semicolon, you get a syntax error. Okay, this is one of those times that doesn't allow you to use any semicolon in here. To terminate your the property, because this, if you think about an array, this is like the first element of the array, second element, and so on. So usually you separate each of those by a comma. Okay, so or you can leave it out completely and it's empty. You don't have to put any of this at all. You can actually attach object properties later. Okay. Yeah. So, or you can say a new object like I did here. Okay. So here's an example of that. See, we instantiate a dog of it's a blank. It's an object, has no properties. Once you do that, then you can add its name. You can add a function. Okay, this is a function. Call this a function expression. Assign that to a variable called bark. And when you call this function, you have to specify. You have to use the paren here to invoke the function. Okay. Or you can also have SubObject. Okay, so it's an object inside another object. So the dog is an object, has an info property, and this info property is an object, has these additional properties for that as well. So you can have as many layers as you want going down. And then when you access these data, just make sure that you just basically traverse down the tree. Okay, it's like a tree from the top to bottom. So the dog, the dot info here, and then the age will be just dot age, right? Info dot breed, info dot gender, and so on to get down to that data. So like here, info dot age, and so on. You can use the dot notation, or you can use the square brackets like the array, or you can use both. Okay, I'm not sure what this one is, but oh no, don't start. Okay, so you can use both like this. At the array dot age or array and all dot notation, that's fine too, as long as these keys are not numbers. Okay, they have to be either just a string like this or a character. Then you can access the dot notation. If it's a number, then you have to put inside the square brackets here as an array index. Okay. And if you don't want to keep one of these properties anymore, you have to issue the command called delete, followed by the object name, and then the property name. Okay, you're not deleting the object, you're deleting its property. The last element, the last item on this dot notation here, you can say dot.name will delete the name property. If you want to delete the age out of that, you have to say dog.info.age, and then it will delete that from the list. Okay? When you delete it, it's gone. It doesn't mean it's there. Okay? That is different than saying if you just assign dog.name equal to empty or to null or to undefined, that will contain those values, but then the property will still be there. Okay? So you can delete it completely. Use the delete command, and then that will delete it.
Or you only wanted to delete the age, you do dog.name, dog.info.age with the delete command. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to make sure I told you exactly on that.
Yes. Okay, you will also see the this keyword here. The this keyword is referring to the object or the function or whatever it is that's being invoked. Okay, so in this case, if it's this, then this refers to the pet. Okay, so and then the pet stuff, right? So for example, if you want to access the name variable here or the name property, you have to use the keyword this dot name to get the name here. If you just type name without the this keyword, it's going to be undefined. Okay, because this, as you can see, this is a special function, right? The anonymous function. Inside the function, if you don't put this, if you just do like this, it's thinking that inside this function you have a local variable called name. Okay, so it cannot find it. If you want to get to this pet's name, then you need to put that this in front of it to access that. Okay. Or you could use, like Tom mentioned last week, which is pretty good. You can say pet.name, and that's fine too. Okay. But usually this will be applied to any object, so you don't have to be very specific, because I could change this to something else. I could change this to, I don't know, fruits or something, right? And then when you do that, then if you have it as a pet, well, you have to change that too. So this will take care of that issue.
Could you use like, it has to be this, or could you use like pet.name?
You can use pet.name. Right, so you can use that. This is not recommended because they mentioned, what if later I change this to like whatever?
Right.
Then you go down and locate that.
I was in the grab. Whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
yes, right. Okay, so.
Christian,
Mm-hmm.
can you scroll back up to that blue box where you had the syntax?
Oh. Up here?
Now there you had it in the curly brackets and the square brackets. You said you use the square brackets if it's a number.
Oh, when you access the property.
That's declaring.
Yes.
Okay.
Not declaring. In this case, the brackets here, in this example here, I'm just making this optional.
It's optional?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in this case. That means I could completely just leave it like that. Okay, so for the syntax, the square brackets means optional. You don't have to specify that. Kind of like this, like in the dog. I could just say empty and brackets. Or
One of them for readability or something? It's not required. Is there
in here,
yeah, the bracket.
this is I think just by convention. Okay, it doesn't mean that you should put it in here in your code, right? It just means that it's optional. Most languages will use the square brackets to show that's optional. You don't have to use it. Okay, you can leave it out. That means you don't have to specify the data in here. I could say in here, I would say name, and then whatever it is, right? And then age, and then 12, have some default values. So now I'm declaring some properties, a property with value, a second property with value, and so on.
Yeah, so
if you want.
If you were really writing the syntax that would say var the object name equals curly brackets, you wouldn't put the square brackets in there when you were declaring it.
Right, right. No, if you put that in there, yeah, this is confusing because in JavaScript you can because you have an object of an array of object. So you have those nested inside. If you see that in the JSON notation, you have both of those mixed together. Okay.
Yeah.
But in this example only, it's optional. Okay, I should say optional. Put a different color or something. Maybe I'll do this. I'll do like that. Optional. Okay. Great question. All right. We just thought about the sub-objects, right? You have a object inside another object, and so on. Creating functions inside an object. Okay, you cannot have a complete or standard or a named function in the object. Okay, you can only use function expression assigned to a variable. Okay, like I showed you in the dog.bark up there. So you can't do that in there. So yeah, well, we'll show some example. Let me just do right here. In other words, if I say var pet equals that, I have I can't do this. I cannot do function x, right, and then do something like that. Okay, in a regular class, object-oriented programming language like Java, you can't, right? Usually you have that inside a constructor and so on, but you can't do this. If you want to use a function, you have to assign that to something like y is equal that, and then you can access that by using the pet.y, and then you call the function this way. So it's just a rule. You can't have a name function inside that object. Okay. Because it's an object, you can use the for-in statement. It's a loop to loop through your object. We'll do an example of that in a we'll do our examples. The deleting properties, I showed you that already. And then we have what's called a constructor function. Okay, so what we just saw about the pet and the dog and so on, those are built-in functions using the object constructor. It's given by JavaScript. So you can also have your own special function as well. These are your constructors. So it will work exactly or very similar to a regular object-oriented programming language constructor. As you can see, you have the keyword function for that, and then the name of the object. The only thing is that in Java, for example, you don't have to specify. No, you do. Yeah, that's fine. Is that the name has to be exactly the same as your class name? That's all. But here it could be anything, and then you give any parameters. Again, the square bracket just means optional. Okay, and then you have the property equal value. Okay, you always have to use the word this in here. It's required. Okay, if you don't put this, I think we'll have an error, or it's not part of the object itself. So this property equals a value, and then there you have a semicolon. So this is a little bit different from how you declare a variable using the object notation. Okay, so this is a constructor, and because it's a constructor, then you can instantiate objects out of this constructor. Right? So for example, here back to the pet one, I said pet function pet, it's a constructor, has a name and info. You pass those two parameters to the constructor, and you would assign those names, info, into those two properties here. It's going to try to just say flowers. And then you can also have other properties here. The bark is given a function, the anonymous function, and it's alert, give it a name, the name here, and then has other information about the age here. So info, as you can see here, is calling another function, which I don't see here, okay, or another property here. And then because pet is a constructor, I can create a cat out of that, a dog out of that, or any other objects out of that pet class. Okay, so this is useful for if you want to have multiple objects that have the same signature or the same properties, features. If you want to reuse it again, okay. If you don't want to use that, if you just say, oh, just one object and that's all I need, then you could use the other one, just the object type. So you can just say if there's just one cat and that is unique cat, you can just say cat is that, right? You can use that, and that's the object class. They built it in the class from in JavaScript, and then once that's done, then you cannot have another cat. Okay. In other words, I can't say cat2 is equal to cat. If you do that, you're not actually having two cats, it's just one. It's just they're pointing to the same cat, right? So if you modify one cat or the other one, it affects both of them. Okay, that's the reference type for objects. So if you want to have a different cat, then use your own function and then instantiate a cat object out of that. So do some example here for demo tonight. The prototype is a special property. I think the book shows something how you actually change the property or add new properties to your class. I'm not sure if you tried it or not. If you did, you might have an error because it's kind of dated. And so in the book, it shows you how to